Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Vicenzoro. On behalf of Italian Exhibition Group, I thank you, every one of you, for being here and joining our community. Today is a very special edition for Vicenzoro. We're marking the 70th anniversary, and that reminds us about the long history we have here in Vicenza. So actually, everything began back in 1954 with the very first show about gold and jewelry. And since that time, the evolution was so great and so huge that last year, after 69 years, we got the best time ever in terms of exhibitors, visitors, and everything. But the real big success of this history at the moment is the fact that we are now becoming a cultural platform. And what does it mean, cultural platform, for us is that we bring in here content, discussion about the most interesting topics in the industry, and we're helping, our industry to developing and to, becoming better, nicer, and more sustainable. So I need to say a big thank you to our partners today, and especially to Vhernier, such a great brand that is for the first time joining Vicenzoro. Thank you, Isa, and thank you all your team. But not only, today at the stage we have top opinion leaders, and when we say we are like a cultural platform, it's really like this. So having for each view of our industry, the best people, the best opinion leader you can have globally, actually. So, but I leave the stage to Giulia Crivelli. Is a very famous journalist in Italy, and I leave to you, Giulia, and thank you for being here and helping us to, promote the jewelry in our industry in Italy, to run the floor. And thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'll just stand up, but just for these initial words. My name is Giulia Crivelli. I've been working for Il Sole 24 Ore group for 23 years and a half. I'm formerly fashion editor, but we do have a weekly section which is called Moda 24, and just like our big, not competitors, but idols like Financial Times and Wall Street Journal, we have during the year special sections on jewelry, watches, men's fashion, women's fashion, and beauty. And sometimes I think there's too many sectors we want to talk about, but especially in the last 10, 15 years, they've really become more interconnected, and we'll talk about, especially today, jewels and art, but really there's so many connections going on. So maybe, just to justify the variety of themes we touch in Sole 24 Ore, I say that it's good to look at the bigger picture. I really love jewels, like I think every person in the world. And it's when they contacted me to take part in this, I was really fascinated by the name of the talk, Built on the Power of Art, the Value of Artistic Brands in the Jewelry Business. And I'm also quite happy that we're all women here on stage today. So let me introduce them. Just in the order in which then you will hear from them. Claudia D'Arpizio. I feel embarrassed to introduce them, but anyways, she's senior partner and global head of fashion and luxury at Bain and Company here in Italy, but not only in Italy. She is really when I go to speeches she gives or studies she introduces, I always come back with some real ideas and new ways of thinking about things I thought I knew just because I knew the numbers, but the numbers are never enough. And then we'll have Corinne Dauger. She's now strategy consultant, but and writer and researchers, expert on jewels, but also used to be vice president of Hermès. So speaking of interconnection of the big luxury goods world. And then Stellene, Volandes, she's editor-in-chief of Town & Country. I'm really sorry we don't have an Italian edition of Town & Country, but we were talking before and she said it's like a pillar of the publishing industry in the US, but she's also very passionate about jewels, although they too talk about they touch many topics. She was telling me after Vicenza, she'll fly to Paris for the haute couture. And then Isabella, our host, we could say, together with Marco Carniello and the Italian Exhibition Group and Vicenza Oro. She'll tell us about the fascinating story of Vhernier. And Randi Udell, she's vice president of London Jewelers. People who know the States a little bit know how important this name is in the jewelry business, and she'll give us also the perspective from the US market, but also very interesting to see how retailers choose what to offer their clients. So let's start with Claudia, and she'll introduce us a few numbers, but as I say, a point of view, an insight. Okay.
Grazie, Giulia. Okay, so maybe starting from a few figures on the industry that you can see. Actually, I cannot see them, so you can read them from the slide. But I would start maybe from the concept that this is a very healthy industry and that jewelry is overall performing very well globally. In particular in some geographical areas, so Asia is driving the growth, US is a super important market, but actually jewelry is very spread, not on a few countries, but really everywhere in the world with a lot of specificities and different tastes and really linked to the culture and the traditions and the heritage of every population and every country. What is happening in industry, and you are the proof of it, is that this is still a market that is strongly unbranded. So 70% of the market is what we call unbranded jewelry. That means or small brands or products that are manufactured and distributed through a multi-brand environment without a strong brand. And differently from other sectors where the unbranded market is in the low end of the pyramid, in jewelry we have very high-end and precious unbranded jewelry. Thinking to diamond jewelry, for instance, that is a big chunk of the market. But what is happening is that behind a market that is slightly growing or flattish in the last years, the branded segment is gaining share. So we have brands becoming more important, jewelry becoming more visible, more recognizable, more symbolic in a way, and also taking lessons from what happened in fashion and other sectors, and establishing a stronger relationship with customers. That's what brand does. So together with the intrinsic value of jewelry that is linked to the preciousness of the materials and the stones and the uniqueness of the design, you have also the power of the brands and the ability of these brands to strengthen and create a relationship with consumers. So if we go we see very clearly that the driver of this market will be mainly the branded part. It's already performing better of the unbranded, and inside this segment, the high end of the pyramid is overperforming. So what we call luxury branded market last year grew 15%, and it was the highest growth in luxury across category, also compared to fashion, accessories, or watches, or beauty. So it was the best performing performing category. In a period, 2023, where we had 2 wars, an economical cycle, a lot of inequalities in the world, a lot of turbulence. So this market has proven to be both resilient, but also able to enlarge the customer base and to attract a very young customer base. So what is happening in these last years is that young customers are entering into the pie, Gen Z, so teenagers that are buying these products from the same brands of their parents or their grandparents. So we have 4 or 5 generations buying from the same brands. And this, I think, it's probably the first time in history that we have brands that are able to engage and have territories of conversation with a variety of customers from a racial standpoint, from an age standpoint, from a nationality and cultural standpoint. Of course, with different products, often also with different, I would say, nuances in the conversation, but always delivering a very strong engagement. Inside the branded market, we have very, I would say, different animals. So a first segmentation is between the big brands, what we call giant heritage jewelry brands, that actually represent more than 70% of the market. So these are the usual names: Cartier, Bulgari, Tiffany, Van Cleef & Arpels. So brands that have revenues in excess of 1 billion and that have been really doing a strategy of global reach, engaging with a very diverse customer base, always respectful of the local tastes and the local traditions, so really tailoring the assortment, but sometimes also the communication for the local needs. But I would say through a strategy of monobrand stores and strong direct engagement with consumers. Again, these brands have a strategy that we can call high-low, so they keep a focus on the high-end, they nurture the top customer. At the same time, they keep enlarging the customer base, talking with the young customers, developing the entry item in their portfolio, and recruiting more and more customers every year. So this is a strategy that provides resilience, at the same time, I would say longevity, because it's new customers, nurturing new customers. Then we have, in the green spot, personal luxury goods brands that are entering more and more into the jewelry segment. So the Chanel, the Dior, the Louis Vuitton, Gucci, so actually all of them now have a jewelry collection, and they have 2 objectives. One is nurturing the top customers, so having another argument of conversation for the ultra net worth individual, and providing uniqueness and an alternative to the jewelry brand, to the top of the pyramid. At the same time, using the codes that they have developed in fashion or in their core category inside their the jewelry. So they have a very large collection often, but they are able also to strengthen their brand through pillars and codes that come from fashion. So I see here a camellia shoe on, and actually there are some fashion codes that are very strong and that they are able to bring also in the jewelry part. So they are actually real competitors for the core jewelry brands because they have usually big budgets, big communication budget, big network of stores, and moreover, a loyal customer base. So they have a large and loyal customer base that they can nurture. And then we have, actually, no, I was discussing the black part. The green part, that is the smaller jewelry brands that where we have very different animals. It's a very fragmented arena, where some of the players that you find in Vicenza are, so including Vhernier or Buccellati or Fred, so all the smaller ones. But even insurgent brands, new brands like Messica, or new brands, small, super small, that are kind of disrupting the rules of the game, entering into the market maybe with a dedicated proposition through e-commerce and linking to a specific cultural element that is relevant in a specific country. So it's a very fragmented but also very dynamic, a very interesting segment made of different performances and often relying on a multi-brand environment for distribution. So, and this is where a lot of the competition is, and where it's important to make the brand more and more visible inside a multi-brand environment. Probably the future giants will come from this cohort of brands, but growing a jewelry brand is a lot of effort because you need excellence in many levers, starting from product, creativity, link with culture, distribution, and of course marketing and ongoing communication. The positive thing, just to conclude, is that, as I said, and I think we discussed during the panel, jewelry has a very, very strong symbolic value. Actually, we wear jewelry since the ancient times, and they were symbols of magic, emotions, conquest, and this value has enriched more recently with a broad set of values and territories of conversation. Likewise, fashion and likewise luxury at large. The young generation, starting from millennials, but including Gen Z, have a different relationship with these products. No more status symbol, or not only status symbol and aspirational value, but more and more platform for self-expression and for self-actualization. And so this is true across the globe, so from China to US to Europe. And so this enlarges the touch points and the memories and the emotion that you can engage with when talking to consumers. So it's a very healthy industry because you have the usual, I would say, basic roots, the intrinsic value, the quality, the craftsmanship, but also a lot of new symbolic value that comes also from the relationship with customers. And the other thing is that you have dynamism both at the bottom of the pyramid, but also at the top. So there is a strong polarization of wealth. This is not positive, but for sure is a driver of consumption. At the same time, a new continuous recruiting of young customers that are engaging in particular with brands and less with the unbranded jewelry. So this just to give a little bit of a background on the market, and then happy to take other questions later.
Thank you. I told you she would give us
Ve l'avevo detto che ci avrebbe dato degli argomenti molto interessanti su
give the microphone to Corinne Dauger to go back really to the title of this talk. So the relationship between brands and artistic luxury. You know, it's not new, of course. Everybody, I think, remembers, for example, the famous Piet Mondrian collection of Yves Saint Laurent. But recently, in the shows, and also especially in the jewelry market, we've seen many collaborations with art. So I would like to ask Corinne to give us an overview and tell me if it's true or if it's just my impression that this trend of bringing the two worlds together is stronger than ever.
Well, you're absolutely right, Giulia. Of course, like the world of luxury and the world of art, they are intimately connected. And it's true that the connection is getting closer and closer. And as you said, this is not a new phenomenon. It's amplified because of business reasons, but the phenomenon has been there forever. We're in Italy, and it's a French person saying that. Their country of art. We are very jealous of Italy and of the heritage. But this is really the place where it all started with the Renaissance movement, like in the 15th century. Like you had, well, here you can see, I don't know if you recognize him. This is the great Lorenzo de' Medici, and he was representative of the elite in aristocracy, the elite in wealth, the elite in power, but also the elite in education. And one way for him to express his influence was to sponsor the greatest artists. And he sponsored the greatest artists of his time, like Sandro Botticelli, like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and why did he do that? Well, he did that, for sure, he had an eye for art and a taste for art, but he has also another agenda, to be honest. It was a way to impress, it was a way to express his influence, and it was a way to leave a fantastic legacy. And he succeeded in doing that. Today, going back to today, I think all the luxury houses are, in a way, following into the footsteps of Lorenzo de' Medici. And they are partnering with the world of art for the same kind of reasons, but in different forms. And yes, I'm happy that you quoted Yves Saint Laurent and the Mondrian dress. Yves Saint Laurent was really one of the first to borrow directly, pieces of art. In haute couture, he had dresses, with the patterns from Matisse, from Van Gogh, and yes, he borrowed this beautiful painting from Mondrian. Talking about Chanel, Chanel No. 5 is in the MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York. What a recognition, what an achievement for a brand to be considered art and exhibited in a museum. And of course, this was enabled by Andy Warhol, who painted the silk screen, but it chose Chanel No. 5 because of its iconic and symbolic value, as you said, Claudia. And well, it's impossible not to talk about Vuitton, because Vuitton really behaves as a Lorenzo de' Medici, and the brand is sponsoring very well-known artists to express themselves on the canvas of their bags. And here you see, this is Jeff Koons. He was commissioned by Louis Vuitton to design, special collections of bags, and he went as far as printing, the Mona Lisa or Monet on the bags. It's like triple reference to art. And maybe a last form is art foundations. Like many houses have foundations. Hermes has one, Prada has one here, and that actually, Vuitton, of course, has a big one. But Cartier was the first with a foundation that exhibits artists and promotes artists. Now, why are these brands doing that? But it's definitely to elevate their creative image. But also, it's a way to have an impact on the culture. It's a way to be a great cultural player in the world of today. And that's what luxury, and jewelry in particular, is seeking to achieve. It's not just they'll sell objects, but sell an art of living and a culture, and influence the culture.
No, and I was thinking that Claudia was saying there are so many interconnection. Looking at the Chanel bottle, was created in 1921, so it turned 100 years 3 years ago. And one of the jewelry collection, I think very successful, of Chanel, is totally inspired by the shape of the bottle. Yeah. So really, as well as the camellia, of course, but really we come back to that these big brands have this opportunity to create osmosis between their different symbols.
Yeah, and it's also the difference between fashion and luxury.
Of course.
Because fashion fades. Luxury or luxury fashion pass the test of time. And you say, well, Chanel #5, century, still iconic today.
Yeah.
And
So
that's-
maybe this reason to get closer to art, and of course you can understand that big brands can use this while unbranded jewelry, it's more difficult for them to have access to the art world. So here they really have a competitive advantage, the big brands that entered the jewelry arena. But really, this connection, as you were saying, it gives them probably a bigger chance to go in the future, because
Yes.
of course we're all obsessed by 6 collections a year, even in luxury brands, and you know, always putting out new things, and you can't even metabolize the
Yeah.
previous collection, and you already have a new one. But art should be
It's forever.
exactly.
It's forever, and it's above and beyond reality. And actually, I'd like to echo what Claudia just said about the three different segments, you know, in the jewelry market. And even if we step back, this corresponds also to consumer and client segmentation. And on the one hand, you have some people who maybe in a way, regardless of their age, they are a little bit more conservative, and they will go for the well-established brands. They will go for the brand that's been there forever. They trust them. They know they are not making a mistake. And it's also a way to express a status. And in addition, you have another group of people. Sometimes it's the same who have evolved, but it can be also different people. And they are not looking for status. They are looking, as you said, for self-expression. So it's a different story. And then, of course, what is better than art to enable people to express themselves and to express who they are? And these people usually have a high sense of taste and style. So they know, they are discerning about style, so they're looking for art and design. And this is true in every luxury market. It's something that I see everywhere. For instance, in hospitality, well, you see the difference between the Ritz in Paris, Place Vendôme. You know, what could be more statutory than the Ritz Place Vendôme? That's the place where Gabrielle Chanel lived, where, you know, all the royalty came, for instance, Diana, and it facing Place Vendôme, red carpet, prestige, luxury. And on the other side, it's difficult to recognize the place. Then it's on purpose. Maybe, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the brand Aman. And Aman Hotels talks to these new expectations. This is a new, different form of luxury that is much more intimate for people who don't care to be seen in the prestige place. They care to indulge and enjoy this elevated sense of design and serenity and peace. And the two grow next to each other. It's not that one replaces the other. There is dynamic and energy. If you go to the fashion market or fashion accessories that we were evoking, well, of course, like you see the lady on your left, right? She's dressed in a way that is, you could say, conservative, like just a bit understated, but she's traveling with Vuitton. Because you have to travel in Vuitton bag. And everybody can see that it's Vuitton bag. By the way, these are not, this is not advertising. These are really street shots from the street. So this woman, she's wearing sort of a kind of a badge. She wants to belong. You're in or you're out. And she wants to be in, shows she travels in Vuitton, and everybody can see it. On the right side, well, same hair length, sunglasses, but a totally different look and style. And here you have a woman who has a sense of style. And she's quite bold about it. I mean, look at the coat. I'm not sure I would dare to wear it, but I envy her. And she's putting together a very unusual combination of materials and colors. And some of you will recognize Bottega Veneta. That is a brand that did cater to this type of people. There's no logo and very bold colors. So two complementary targets, the one who go for the safe bet, recognition, and the one who go for self-expression and has a sense of art and style. If I think of fine fragrances, the same is taking place. Well, everybody knows, you know, J'adore, competitor to number 5, one of the best-selling, you know, luxury fragrances now. Who buys J'adore? But you buy it for yourself. Many women are in love with the brand universe of Dior that is so glamorous and feminine and timeless. It's also a gift. And you know you're not going to be wrong if you offer Dior. This is like a safe bet. And then you put Dior in your house, so you live in the world of Dior. But then you have this other segment of people who say, well, the last thing they want is Dior. The last thing they want to see in their home is a bottle that is on every billboard in the street. They want something much more artistic, much more elaborated, sophisticated, personal, intimate. And I don't know if you know this brand. This is a new brand that started in 2009 called Francis Kurjian. This is an Armenian, you know, perfumer artist. Started from nothing, and just, you know, in 2023, it was almost, you know, 200 million euros. Now, it's very small compared to Dior that is in billions, but still from nothing in just a couple of years. And who buys that? This kind of people, the artistic buyer, who goes for self-expression, something different. And I will conclude with jewelry. Well, you see, you know, side by side, again, two different brands, different segments, and talking to different customer segments. So on the one side, of course, everybody recognizes Chanel. You don't even need the brand name Chanel. You recognize the Coco Crush, that is a very successful collection. And who buys Coco Crush? I mean, the women who are into the Chanel style,
because Corinne, then again, that's the matelassé.
Exactly.
So
you don't need the logo Chanel. It's an iconic signal. You know, it's the matelassé, the quilt. Maybe for the boys here who are less familiar than us, you know, this is the pattern that are seen on the iconic Chanel bag that is called the 255, because it was created in February 1955. So this Coco Crush retains this pattern. So everybody sees that this is Chanel. So the women who wear that, of course, they like the design, they love the Chanel brand, but they also want to show that, well, I'm a Chanel woman, so I'm wearing Chanel, and everybody recognizes. And on the other side, you have a house like Vhernier, who is our hero today. It's not talking to the same people, or maybe to people who, okay, they have already bought into the Chanel and the Cartier, but now they want something else, or people who started already willing something else. Women with a sense of style, an appetite for something that is artistic, emotional, a way to express who they are. And they are everything but followers. They are more leaders, you know, the women who walk in the middle of the corridor, they know who they are. And it's not a question of age, because some women will have that, you know, well, think of my daughter, you know, some has, in particular the younger generation, they are very knowledgeable about art and creativity. So they have a sense of style that definitely I didn't have at that age. And
Thank
some others, they come a little bit later and they mature and they want this artistic branch.
Sure. Well, thank you, Corinne. And actually,
Brava.
speaking of the perfumery part, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Milan, but now we have a street, which is, by the way, in Brera, where we have the famous Accademia di Brera. And there's lots of, and they keep opening, lots of stores of artistic perfumery. And there, the packaging is almost a jewel. I mean, some of the bottles are little jewels. So as you can see, I mean, we keep coming back to this intersections, especially with art, but you know, with precious, unique things. But let's now. I want to hear from Stellene Volandes. She was telling me she has Greek origins, so big art in your origins as well. As I told you, editor-in-chief of Town & Country. Although Town & Country, but they have, I mean, there too you can find beautiful things of all sectors. But she in particular is an expert on jewelry and artistic jewelry in particular. So if you can tell us something, and of course, I'd love to have the American perspective because it's always, I mean, it's easy, but it's always also very difficult for us Europeans to understand the American point of view.
Well, I'm going to first challenge some of what we're talking about here because we're talking about jewelry's associations with art and how jewelry can be closer to art. And I think that what we all need to be much more confident about and to communicate much more strongly and clearly is that jewelry is art. And jewelry designers are artists. Visual art has just had much better marketing. But if you look at the value of a painting and the value of a beautiful handmade jewel, if you look at the process, if you think about the inspiration that leads to that piece of jewelry, it tracks exactly with a piece of visual art. We just, as jewelers, as an industry, have always felt that we were not in that category because we were a commodity. We were something that was worn and was dismissed, I think, for a long time as a frivolity. I think why jewelry right now is so strong is because people are beginning to understand it as art. And I think that is the one great thing that Instagram and social media has given us. I've been writing about jewelry for about 25 years. I have never had more people ask me about jewelry than in the last 5 to 10 years. And they want to know when it was made, what was happening in the world that made it look like this, what stones were available or not available, who was the designer, where were they from, what was their inspiration. All the questions that we ask about any piece of visual art, we can ask about jewelry and it has the answers. And I feel very strongly that if we communicated that confidently, and if we really believe it ourselves, then the associations with art become collaborations with other artists, not associations. And I think brands that have taken that language and used it in communicating their own pieces have clear and distinct personalities. They have strong and lasting identities. And when a consumer, whether it's an American consumer or an Italian consumer, which I think the idea that those are so different has collapsed. I think there is now a global consumer. The information about jewelry and about luxury is global. And I think at this level of the market, that consumer has access to all information. They travel. I don't think that idea of a separate approach or radically different tastes really exists anymore.
Just like Claudia was saying.
Yes. I think, and I think even when we talk about non-label jewelry, when this is my first time at the Vicenza Fair, and I know it's kind of shocking, and I walked around today, and yes, I walked in Hall 7 and saw so many wonderful brands that I've been writing about for so many years, but I also walked in the other halls where I saw beautiful handmade chains, where I saw the person selling the clasps. Those unbranded jewelers are artists and artisans as well. And I think communicating that creative process as a creative process will elevate the entire industry. We were talking about Vhernier. If you look at Vhernier's communication, Brancusi is referenced, Jean Arp is referenced, but then you go into the store and that is a completely consistent message. First of all, the stores have a beautiful exhibit like gallery space. The pieces are presented as objets. It's not overcrowded. It is, you look at a Vhernier necklace in one of the Vhernier stores, and it looks as if you are looking at a sculpture. They're one and the same. That consistency is key. When let's take Van Cleef and Arpels. Okay, first of all, when they communicate about their jewelry, they communicate about the materials, how the stones are selected, how each stone is placed by hand. They also have a consistent association with dance. But that is presented as a collaboration between Georges Balanchine and the Arpels brothers. It is not a sense that, Van Cleef was sort of trying to sort of associate itself with dance. The story is that on his way to rehearsal, he used to pass the Van Cleef windows and loved the ballerina brooches and thought, we should do something together. And a whole ballet called Jules is inspired by Van Cleef ballerina brooches. So if what we all do, we write about, we make, can inspire one of the greatest dancers and choreographers of the 20th century, I think we should feel very confident that it is art as much as anything else.
And you know what I think is also, listening to you, it's maybe even more than art, because we always know the artist, but we don't know what's behind it. With jewels, I mean, you were saying we can be told where the stones came from, what technique was used, which handcrafting technique was developed and survived through centuries. So maybe it's even more interesting as a way.
Well, yeah, I think so, but I'm biased. But I think what has happened, I went to the Jewelry Museum yesterday in Vicenza, and I mean, the fact even that there are so few jewelry museums in the world, when a museum has a jewelry show, the attendance is off the charts. So hopefully that will change. But, you walk in and there's, jewelry as symbol, which Claudia talked about, and but then there's a jewelry as art, and what's there is mostly studio jewelry. And I think that we have kind of convinced ourselves that for jewelry to be art, it needs to be unwearable. It needs to look sort of out of the ordinary. And the jewelry that I saw today in Hall 7, the jewelry that I see, as I go about my appointments is extraordinary, but it's also beautiful to look at. I don't think jewelry has to be weird to be considered art. And I think we have to sort of convince ourselves out of that too.
Yeah. Isabella, now it's your turn. I mean, you probably, I'm sure you were very happy to hear some of these things we heard. But, there's only one thing.
I totally agree, actually.
There's only one thing I'd like to say about Vhernier. and you probably know, well, you certainly know the book in Italian is called Le Affinità Elettive. It's one of of Goethe's most famous books, elective affinities. And that term, I think, suits brands like Vhernier and maybe some fashion brands. It's like when you meet someone, when you run into someone that has Vhernier or maybe another brand, it's like, well, there's a connection there. We don't even need to talk. There's something, and it goes beyond the age, and it really, I mean, it's almost, it doesn't even need to talk. Vhernier talks for itself, a Vhernier jewel. But Isabella, if you want, I mean, I'm sure most of us know a bit of Vhernier, but tell us about the story.
Never enough, actually. But thank you, Giulia, and give me the opportunity to thank Marco Carniello, who was there but actually disappeared, as Celi, and Vicenza Oro for hosting us here. Thank you, guys. We feel a huge responsibility to be part of this segment in the jewelry business, in the design jewelry, because it comes from actually two main substantial reasons. First one is because Vhernier was born from a modern sculptor. In the mid-80s, he started with his first works, and he's been helped by a young woman, and actually happens often that a man is helped by a woman. Pass me this. And she's here in the audience, and I wanted to thank her because he helped him to turn these ideas into jewels, into the first prototypes of Vhernier jewels. So, Angela, thank you so much for what you have done for Vhernier in the last years, in the past years, and still today, so thank you. And the second reason, actually, is Carlo Traglio. Carlo is a collector of modern art. He is a connoisseur, but most of all, he's an aesthete. So when he saw the first prototypes of Vhernier, he fell in love, but he recognized immediately the aesthetic philosophy of the father of the modern sculptor, who is, of course, Constantin Brancusi, sure you know, according to whom simplicity is complexity resolved. And so he saw this philosophy applied to the design of Vhernier. He decided then with his brother, Maurizio, actually my father, to start this journey. They saw in Vhernier a potential. They saw a brand. So that they saw something so different that deserves to be discovered by as many people as possible. So the first Vhernier boutique opened in 2002 in Milan. This is where we come from, but who we are now. Today, we still feel this huge responsibility to continue to carry these ideas. So we start from a form as a sculptor. We don't start just only from a gemstone or from precious materials, precious metals. Today, Vhernier is a house of innovative design jewelry sculpted in pure Milanese elegance. Did I say it well? Thank you. And because creation for us is the key, I think the question is always, how do you create? Where Vhernier takes the inspirations. And we have three main sources of inspirations, very important. So the first one is the modern sculptor. It's obvious, the connection with the art in Vhernier is obvious. Constantin Brancusi, Jean Arp, Max Bill, Barbara Effort. So it's conceptual, it's abstract. Then the body with curves, with volumes, the skin. So the body is the link, is the connection between the jewel and the wearer. For us, the body is the ultimate piece of art.
Also, because as Stellene was saying, nice jewelry must be wearable.
Of course, of course.
So,
In 2024, for sure. and we design jewelry to enhance the beauty of the individual, the sculptural beauty of the individual. And these sources of inspirations gave us a specific design language that for us is super important. We follow it as a Bible. And the design language is based on 4 fundamental pillars. And every time that we wanted to create something new and we are there and sharing our ideas, we have in our mind these 4 points, these 4 pillars. The first one is purity. Purity means simplicity for us. What is there for a reason. There is no frills. So when the people see simplicity in a Vhernier piece, we see complexity resolved. Energy. Energy, because very often a Vhernier jewel is loaded of energy. You see a movement in it. You see that something is happening, but you don't really understand immediately. You have to try it on. Then mystery. Mystery, because a Vhernier piece is never obvious. Like, for example, the ring, the abbraccio ring, is made in 2 parts. 1 part is banded, eclisse, the eclisse with the diamonds. You see the diamonds when you wear it, but not obvious for the person in front of you. Necklaces with the clasp always hidden. It's something that you wanted to discover, that you wanted to see, to understand. Last one, sensuality. Sensuality because there is a tactile effect. You wanted to touch it. The Vhernier piece invites you to be touched, to be caressed. So it's kind of with the volume, with the softness of the pieces. And it's not just beautiful to look at, but it's also to live with daily. So this is for us, you know, the design and the jewelry, the artistic jewelry.
and if I can ask you something, I mean, you're still very young, but you were even younger, almost a baby when Vhernier was born. So you can tell us, especially the second part of, but how difficult was it? I mean, 2002, it's only a little more than 20 years, to find a space, to find attention in this world of either huge unbranded universe or mega brands.
It's been super difficult, you know, because super new, very different, not comparable to anybody, handcrafted in Italy, but really not. And so the energy, the time, the efforts that you have to put in this project. But I think if you have a vision and you really are convinced on what you're doing and you have a special project, an artistic project like Vhernier, you don't give up easily, you know.
Good. So, Randi, to you, finally. Thank you, Isabella. Which, by the way, I forgot to say that she's head of design and research and development at Vhernier. So she's really, I mean, she talked to us about what she does every day. But Randi Udell, you're vice president of London Jewelers. In spite of the name, you're American. So maybe we can find a connection with what Isabella was saying. You have, of course, big brands. You probably have unbranded names that maybe, or forms that are famous for your clients. So how important is for a retailer that wants to stay contemporary and maybe appeal to Gen Z or the millennials, the mix that you have to have between well-established brands and new brands, especially artistic jewelry?
So I'm the 4th generation of my family business, and I think that my family has done a wonderful job of, thanks to my parents, my great-grandfather started the business. I just want to give you some background. In 1926 in a small town in Long Island in New York, and he was a watch winder, and he would go to all the homes of the wealthy people in the area, and they would trust him to come and wind their 8-day clocks. And then eventually he opened up a store, and the community trusted him to bring the finest watch and jewelry brands to them. Then my grandparents took over the business, and then my parents, Mark and Candy, who are here with us today, who are the third generation, who really have taken London Jewelers on a path of who and what we are. We are a family business. We are in our locations every single day. My parents brought the trust to our community and to the people who we work with and who we live with, and it's all about relationships and coming together as a community. And I think that that's what London Jewelers does really well. We bring brands, non-branded brands, smaller brands such as Vhernier, which we love that we're two family businesses, side by side, cohesive. We bring brands, we bring a lot of things into our marketplace, and people come to us because they trust us. And I think that it's a common theme in a family business that you put your all into it, right? You put your heart, your soul, your days, your nights. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week commitment. And I think when people see that that's how committed you are and that's how much you stand behind something, and that's how we do it, that they trust you, right? They trust us bringing the larger brands to them. They trust us bringing such brands as Vhernier, who now we've partnered with on 2 boutiques in the United States, and we stand firmly behind this brand. It shows a woman that she could be an individual, that she can be creative, she can be unique, and I think that she can bring her own sense of style together. And with jewelry. Jewelry, as you said, Stellene, is art. And this is why people can be unique as an individual and mix their jewelry and match it the way they want to wear it. And it's really important that every woman should create their own collection. And I think including Vhernier in their collection is a really, really special treat, because I have had the wonderful experience of going with Isa to the factories to see that everything is truly handmade. There are no machines involved. And it was such a special treat to see, like watchmakers that we work with. We sell Rolex and Patek Philippe, and they're wonderful partners to us. And I think to see things still being handmade and using a craftsmanship that is so rare in this world now.
And Randi, do you agree that, you probably do, I mean, you already told us with Stellene that there's more interest from clients, from people to know, tell me more about the stone, tell me more about the Vhernier factory, tell me more, tell me the real storytelling, not the fake storytelling we often hear about.
Of course. So, you know, I'm a mom now to 3 young girls, but again, they're here. 2 of them are here today. And they're in that new category of, okay, I want everything branded and I want a name. And I see the passion that, you know, what some of these brands give to some of these younger clientele. And I think that Isa, like some of the things that you've been designing, my daughter was just sitting here, she said, oh, that's a Vhernier ring. You know, it's super chic and ultra exclusive. And I think that it's going to become a major brand that everybody's going to stack onto their wrist in between all the mega brands that are out there. And I think that it makes you feel confident and it makes you feel different. And that's what women want. They want to stand out from the crowd.
And from your retailer point of view, but especially you have all these relationship with the brands. So this mix and match you were talking about, this is also relatively new, no? Because maybe, well, we know very well how it works with fashion, but with jewelry, it's something newer.
I think it's newer, but I think that's what we excel in at London Jewelers. And we bring everything to the table, and we curate it, we put it together. We really do scour the world. You know, I'm with my family every day. That's what we're spending our time doing. I have an amazing team helping me, you know, to get the best everything to bring to our clientele. But I think it's the trust, and I think it's the way we curate it, that when you mix and match, and if you do it well, you know, you really stand out from the crowd.
And since I have you here, because I'm not a digital native. I was talking to Stellene about this. So of course, we all remember the COVID period, the lockdowns. So how did you manage in that period where you couldn't have, you know, a vis-a-vis relationship with your clients?
Right. So again, you know, you guys produce jewelry, you talk about jewelry, you write books about jewelry, you write articles. We're in the trenches every day. So we are in the stores every day, we are in front of the clients, and during COVID, you know, we have a social media presence and we have an online presence. I think our social media platform became much stronger during COVID because obviously people couldn't come in and touch and feel. But people are still coming in every day to our boutiques and all our stores with images from social media. But COVID really gave us an extra boost as well, because I think it brought people back into the stores. They want to touch and feel things. They want to see a package being wrapped in front of their face. They want to see a box going into our beautiful London Jewelers bag with tissue paper, and they want to receive the special gifts that we give them. And, you know, my dad always has fruit cut up, and they want to experience a cappuccino in our boutique. And I think it's really the love of retail that my family and we have, that we want to make people feel like it's their home. It's their second home when they're walking into one of our stores.
And maybe we can have, I mean, it's almost been an hour, so we can have a second round, and we'll all try to be quick. Claudia, we didn't talk about the retail factor in the jewelry business. So, well, you mentioned that big brands have this potential of investing in, but how important is it for, I mean, we've seen big investments in retail, in boutiques dedicated to the jewelry part of the brands.
I think what is important is the customer engagement. And then, of course, with the store, you have a house where you can host your clients, where you can engage with them, but this is not enough. So the real value is the customer engagement that you need to have also through the social media platforms, to the personal touch. And Randi, what you were saying during COVID, I think luxury brands, fashion brands, and in particular jewelry brands did a fantastic job in staying near to their customers, even with the store closed. And all these salespeople were on the phone, on WhatsApp, or just behind their customers in the difficult moment, keeping the relationship alive, even without sales, even if then the sales came quite naturally, because people in difficult times want useless things. So again, the symbolic and artistic value, and I totally agree with what you said. So jewelry is art, in particular, more than even fashion is art, but I think the jewelry is even more art because it's useless. So like a painting or a sculpture, so you don't need to wear them, you don't need because it's warm or because you need something to walk. So it's just the symbolic value, it's the link with your emotions, with your memories. It's an interpretation of beauty, it's an interpretation of another, of a cultural moment, and has been a link with magic, with gods, with higher human beings, and And this has been so since the inception of humanity. So art and jewelry were the differentiating factor from humans to the gods. And so that's why I think the engagement with customers is so important, because jewelry in particular is so linked to our lives and to our emotions and to our feelings that for sure a store it's important, but it's not again the only thing. I think that moreover, you mentioned many times the word trust. I think the word trust is super important. So that's at the basis. So of course the store is your house, and it's true that there are a lot of money, but beyond the fancy architecture and the, I would say the ceremony, I think that the most important element is the personal relationship that you can have there, and the trust that you can establish with customers.
And Corinne, speaking of art, I mean, you mentioned Chanel many times, the store in Place Vendôme. It's full of beautiful pieces of art. The new store in Monte Napoleone, the same.
Yes.
So maybe, as Claudia was saying, stores are the home of the brand. So maybe it's also a way, well, of course, Tiffany, the new Tiffany store on Fifth Avenue. So maybe there's more, I mean, there's even more connections now. It's a way to show art, maybe to people who wouldn't go to a museum to see that art.
Yes, yes, for sure. This is a window and a place where you can have an aesthetic emotion. Now, I was reflecting on the conversation, and I'm not sure that I would agree with that all jewelry is art, but I think jewelry at its best.
Well, I don't think all visual art is art.
Exactly.
Exactly. There's a lot of junk out there too. So
It's exactly.
Yes.
So we are on the same page.
Yes.
It's not because an object is a jewelry object that it is artful and it has artistic value. This is because there is a creative vision behind it, and there is a craft and a quality of execution, and it expresses a style, an emotion, a vision. Then we have jewelry at its best, and jewelry is artistic. The same way your question about retail, I mean, you are doing retail at its best because you're doing a retail with a heart and with an expertise. So you put the two together, the rational and the emotional. It's not just because it's retail that is doing that, it's just at its best. And I think indeed the great retailers in jewelry, they put together this art of retail and the art form in their craft. And maybe, by the way, the role of retail is super important when it comes to these more artistic, brands, because there's a lot of added value. The added value of picking the right brands, as you said, putting them together and introducing the right brands to the right clients, because who would, feel better or look great or appreciate what. So I think that this is also a way for retailers to express who they are and their sense of style.
And about the fact that she was telling us, I mean, there are very few jewelry museums. There are museums who have a jewelry section. And we know that when there's a jewelry exhibition, huge public. When there's a nice book on jewelry, really. So how is that changing? It
will. When you said that, it struck me as she's so right, and this is wrong that this is not happening. But actually, the brands themselves are taking charge, and they are not relying on well-established museums to run the jewelry exhibition. They do it on their own. So Cartier is doing exhibitions everywhere in the world.
Bulgari
for anniversary, or Van Cleef, and I'm looking forward to an exhibition of Vhernier in the coming years that would put together Vhernier and sculpture. So the brand they can do that. They are cultural agents, so they can do that.
That's one of their competitive advantages.
Yes.
They can do that. So, Stellene, I have a passion, which is for secret watches. But it also brings it to the fact that although we've seen this, there are many connections point between the watches, high jewelry and high watches, high-end watches, and the fact that it's so fascinating to go see the factories. But then again, watches tend to be specialized in watches. I've seen, tries to mix the two universes. So are actually secret watches the best example of how the two worlds can come together?
Well, I think secret watches have been communicated in a way that blends both the fascinating engineering of a watch and the beautiful and emotional art of jewelry. So even the fact that they are called secret watches is quite seductive and evocative. So I think that, being here, of course, a lot of the, I talked to a lot of people about Basel. And I went to Basel for years and years and years. There was the watch hall, and there was the jewelry hall, and there was that sort of bridge you went in between it. It was very separate. And I think that as a writer, I write about jewelry. If I write about watches, they are jeweled watches. I think writing about watches well, you need, when I start talking about a piece of jewelry and where it came from and what was happening in the world and why there was no platinum available, there are people who get that insanely passionate about, a minute repeater. And you want those people, right, the engineering, and it is a miracle of engineering. What a watch is a miracle. And there are people that understand that engineering, and they talk about it as art. Jewelry, I think, is a different language. Certainly there is engineering involved, but I think, as so many people pointed out, there is a level of emotion and a sense of the talismanic powers of jewelry. And
that watches would never have.
I think it's a different thing.
Okay.
I think it's a different thing.
And Isabella, will you ever, I know, I always ask Carlo this, when will you come out with a nice watch? Or maybe you feel the same. I mean, there can be connections here in Vicenza for now 3 or 4 years. There's been a space for watches, but it's two different emotions, it's two different creative processes.
When we did, because actually we did.
Oh,
so
okay.
we already touched the subject, yes. And of course it was jewels with the diamonds. It was inspired by the Sorpresa collection. But let me say that I think it wasn't a moment. It wasn't the right moment. And it's something that we are already thinking about and working on it. We will see. Okay. Because this project takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and honestly, focus on new collections, on innovative techniques, new materials. That is another thing that takes a lot of time. You have to try to,
and speaking of retail, you're both a retailer, because you said we started with a store, but you also have partners like London Jewelers. So is it?
Thanks God.
How difficult is to or how much energy, as you say, you put into building this relationship with other retailers?
Well, it's always it has to be a win-win situation for both sides. So, like gentleman agreement, it has to be. They are helping us to building the awareness of the brand, and we trust them for this help. So, I think when you choose Vhernier, you recognize something that is so different, and I mean, you believe in it, right? It's so different, so special.
It's so different than any other brand that we carry, and nobody else uses materials and stones the way that Vhernier does. And you see, you know, the passion in one piece. You see, it's like an explosion in one piece. And
the energy
it's completely different than anything else. The angles, the lines. So it really works well within our mix because it just stands out.
Yeah. Let's say that when we wanted to get married with a partner, we try to be quite sure that he or she, they're the right one.
That it's a marriage made in heaven, like they say.
Yeah.
And Randi, last question to you. You said you do scouting, you and your family and your daughters. You always look for something new, something that fascinates you. And Claudia was telling us, I mean, now the clientele is more. I mean, it's the same all around the world. Do you see differences between the big market, first luxury market, personal luxury goods markets, the US, and for example, Europe, although we know that you should say which European country are you talking about?
Well, I think it's different because, like, for instance, we have generations of families that come in together and shop with us. We have one family that it's a grandmother, a daughter, and then her daughter, you know, the granddaughter, and the three of them come in together, and they're all looking at the same brand, but obviously different price points and different levels. And I think that they mix it in well, and I'm not so sure that happens, you know, in Europe like it does in the US. I think the US is a very specific market, but people really do, it can trickle down from generations. And I think that's what we are also trying to build as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's so many things, interesting things that I've heard, and probably, I hope, I'm sure you did too. The power of the jewels, and this, I think the most precious thing is the connections between generations, because we really saw from, let's say, year 2000, really, if you think about it, a disruption with the digital revolution. And the internet and now social media. So if we really find something that connects people together or brings together artists and creative and designers and retailers, I think it's something really, really precious that we have to care about, and to value. As Stellene was saying, let's start looking at jewels like pieces of art, not all of them. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from today, this real interconnection that could save us, I think. So thank you all the ladies up here, and I hope you enjoyed it, and have a nice night.
Thank you, Giulia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, and I forgot to thank Marco Carniello, of course, and Vicenza Oro and the Italian Exhibition Group. I'm sure this format will continue in the next editions, because I think, I mean, you are here to show us that it's interesting to find these cultural platforms, as he said.
Thank you.
Grazie, Giulia.
Grazie.